Hello again, everybody. Welcome to Good to Know Shreveport Bossier. This is a podcast which showcases all the good things happening in and around our community. My name is Jeff Meinfor. Over here to my right, this is my co-host Paul Reeser, a local businessman, member of the Committee of 100, and a past fryer of potatoes, fridge fryer, whatever you did there at Sonic, right?
That's right.
Sonic. All right, own 100 of those things. Every podcast we focus on the topics and initiatives having a positive impact on our community. We have new episodes available every other Wednesday, and you can find Good to Know wherever you listen to your podcast. So, as usual, the honors to introduce today's spectacular guests belong to Mr. Reeser.
Thank you, Jeff. Man, you didn't know my family made our money in oil, huh? Huh? You didn't know we made all our money in oil.
The oil that you fried?
French fry oil, yeah. Worked out. Right. Well, thanks for the introduction, and thanks for the honor of introducing our guest today, because, as usual, it's a good one.
I have no doubt.
So, you know, it's interesting to me because today the topic that you and I necessarily aren't totally familiar with, you know, Shreveport Bossier, not the biggest metropolitan area in the country. So it's surprising to a lot of people that we have our own opera house.
Well, I think that's a good thing.
It is. It's remarkable.
Yeah.
And it's been around. It's one of the oldest. It's been around since 1949. And some of the greatest stars, opera stars, nationally and internationally, come right through Shreveport.
Seriously, I didn't know that either.
We're going to learn a lot today, Jeff. So I'm excited to meet the pros that are here today from the Opera House. It is Steve Aiken, the General and Artistic Director, and Jennifer McMenamin, the Executive Director. Thank you all for coming today.
Happy to be here.
Absolutely.
A lot of enlightening Jeff and I need.
Yeah, I know nothing about opera. Well, I like listening to it sometimes.
At least he didn't introduce us as the Opera Company. So, we're happy
That's
about that.
a whole different thing.
That's right.
The Opry.
Yeah, or the Opry.
Yeah, it's the Grand Old Opry.
Yeah.
Is that not what it is?
So you guys just start with telling us all about the Shreveport Opera House and why it's a big deal.
Well, the Opera Company, and I want to make sure that that's clear. The Opera House is something different, that we really don't have an Opera House, but we have an Opera Company that's been here for 75 years.
See, we're learning things already.
Yeah, scratch that out. We have been here for 75 years.
Wow.
It is,
We're one of the oldest opera companies in the country.
Yes.
Nice.
We are, and also the fact that I think one of the big kickers that helped the company get started was it was a combination of the opera and the symphony. And so many people don't even know that we are separate organizations. Mm-hmm. The Shreveport Symphony Orchestra and the Shreveport Opera, we both are celebrating 75 years, but we're both separate organizations. So we're the biggest employer of the symphony because we hire them to play at our operas.
Yeah.
Also, one of the reasons I think that it's stuck here is that the Metropolitan Opera used to come through Shreveport, and the major world-renowned singers would all perform here. So
you're talking about the New York Metropolitan Opera.
Yes,
Sweet.
And so in the day that they were touring, everyone in the arts here remembers Delton Harrison, and Delton would have all of these famous singers come here and come to his house, and he'd make friends with all of them. In fact, within the last 15 years, there's a really world-famous baritone named Sherald Milnes. He sang at the Met for about 35 years, happens to be a friend, and when he found out I was here, the first thing he said was, "Hey, how is Delton Harrison doing? Please tell him hi." And I thought, wow.
Everybody knows old Delton.
Yeah, that's pretty great.
No, it's interesting to me because you're, Steve, you're the artistic one. You're a singer, you're an opera singer yourself from New York City.
Used to be, yeah.
Nice.
Used to be. And Jennifer, you're the business side. You're the fundraising side and planning the business. So it'd be interesting to get both sides of your ideas on why it's been so successful here. And also that you bring in people from all over the country that like live here for a year. The kind of the main cast member is someone that's a up and coming talent. How does that work?
Yeah, that's a great thing I think that we do, and is what has made our program so popular among young artists. That's the program that you're talking about is Shreveport Opera Express, or the SOX program.
I see socks all over. I wondered what that was.
Yeah,
the SOX program.
Right.
Clever.
SOX.
Well, tell us what it is.
Yeah. Well, it's a program for kind of young, and when I say young, I mean mid-20s to early 30s, but that's young for an opera singer. Yeah, absolutely young when you're starting out trying to be an opera singer. And Steve does all the auditions, and he can certainly enlighten you as to that process, which is fascinating in itself. But they come here and they spend a school year here. They sing for school children, they sing at nursing homes, they sing at private parties and events. We do dinner parties, things like that, fundraisers. But the we sing close to 200 times a year to 25,000 students. So that's amazing. But if you're trying to become an opera singer, a famous opera singer, you kind of get tired of dressing up like a lion or an elephant and singing to third graders. So one of the real hallmarks of our program to attract some of this great talent is that Steve decided, maybe 10 years ago, that if he offered these resident artists starring roles in our productions, what we call, principals in our main stage, that he would be able to really attract some high-level talent, and he has been. So these young artists come here, and they are not just expected to bolster the chorus or sing a supporting role, but they're given opportunities to sing Carmen in Carmen. And I just
Even
think
I've heard of Carmen.
okay. I tried to drop one in that you might recognize.
Good job.
And those things, I have to say, those things in the biz, when I was a singer, I was an apprentice in Miami, the very first year that they had an apprentice program in 1984. And most of the residents bolstered the chorus, and that was their job, to bolster the chorus. And now that I'm in the position of using these resident artists in a positive way with our community and the company, it just makes more sense to give them real opportunities on stage, because you don't learn your craft just like in every other business.
Well, I was going to say, it's like an athlete, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
You learn your craft by doing your craft, and that means not in a studio or not in a classroom, but up on stage, and that's how you hone your skills.
The more reps you get, the better, like
that's
in football.
That's
right?
exactly it. That's exactly it.
And that's the artistic answer for sure. The business answer to that is it allows us to save some money on our productions by utilizing the talent that we already have in-house instead of having to basically contract out that job. So that's amounted to significant savings to the opera company over the years since that's been in place.
It's a win-win for everybody. The residents that come in really get an opportunity, and I do everything I can to have them not bolster our chorus, and it's
a good idea.
It really works. It really works. And our other goal is to really move them forward out of Shreveport into a bigger company. I mean, we're really proud of the luck that we've had over the years to have our residents go from here to Santa Fe or San Francisco or Chicago. We had a pianist go right from here to the Metropolitan Opera, where he became one of their pianists. We have singers that now sing at the Metropolitan Opera, and they may be small roles, but it's really...
That's got to be a source of pride for y'all.
Absolutely.
It
And in
is.
fact, we were telling Paul earlier that one of our residents, or I can't remember if I told you, or but a resident that we had 2 years ago, and we had her here for 2 years. She did two seasons with us. She went on to win last year the big Metropolitan Opera competition, won first prize in that in New York
what's her
City.
name?
Sarah Saturnino is her name,
Sarah
and she's with
Saturnino.
Los Angeles Opera right now.
Nice.
So that makes us.
So to make sure I understand this, forgive me.
No.
Bring it back to the
Not at all.
sports analogy.
I will not forgive you, but go ahead.
I don't wish to be offensive,
Yeah.
but I'm kind of equating this to kind of the mud bugs, and that we bring in really young, great talent.
Fair analogy.
And they're looking to go on to major colleges and go on to the pros. So the people we see now are actually really up and comers.
Yes.
So, and they come in as residents. We recruit them from all over the country. So when you say residents, you mean you're bringing in someone from, say, I understand the one that's here now is from Las Vegas.
We have four.
Yeah.
Four. So you bring in these, and you call them residents, but they're from out of state.
Yes.
Yes.
You're bringing them, and they live here for a year
Right.
to perform. So
Right.
can you explain that, how that works?
Yes. So the whole process is, for instance, in December, I went to New York and auditioned singers. We line up the process of having them apply well in advance. We had about 300 singers apply.
Wow.
I only have enough time to hear about 200 of them. So 100 of them, I listened to every one of the 300 singers first on
A tape, yeah.
and then we narrow that down to 200, where I assign them times in New York. We get a space where we can hear them, and we hear them every 10 minutes for 4 or 5 days.
Well, you're kind of competing, though, with other opera houses, right? around the
Yes.
country.
Absolutely.
Yes, yes. In fact, when we were there, a company that we're very friendly with, Nashville Opera, was in a room downstairs, one floor down, doing the exact same thing. And if we heard someone we really loved, we would also send them down to them too, because this is a small world, the opera world.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
so if
It's
you
like
hear
television.
yeah, exactly. If you have someone that you really, really love, you want them to be employed, whether it's going to be with you or someone else. So we listen to all of them, and we then, I come home with the resumes, and I go through them and try to figure out who I want to offer a gig to. And usually the first or second person you offer the job to will take it. Some years it's harder than that because other opera companies have offered them a job.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was going to ask you. When you get down to like 2 or 3
Yeah.
and you're competing for the same talent, how do you determine who wins?
Well, some
I think our main stage roles
Yeah.
for some folks
Oh,
really
that-
do make
yeah,
a difference,
sure.
and
Yeah.
the fact that we're able to offer our program as a school year long. So we provide a house, beautiful home in South Highlands. They get a vehicle to drive. We have a lot of
Wow.
perks. We also have a church job that they can take advantage of with First
This
Presbyterian.
is just like college recruiting.
yes.
It is, and I think that the fact that we've got such a great program that Steve has done through offering them main stage roles, the beautiful home, and that's thanks to our donors and our board, and as well as just having a year-long program where you're not having to figure out all of your jobs in 3-week increments,
Right.
has really makes a difference.
It's-
That's really, those are all very unique things to our program.
The pay is the pay works out to be about what the pay is for most regional opera companies. We don't pay them a lot of money, but we pay them what we can afford, which for us, we pay them $350 a week. The church job pays between $100 and $150 a week, but all of their housing is completely taken care of. All the utilities, we give them wireless. They have a gym pass where they can have a gym membership. And in the early years, I was really concerned about the fee because I thought we're just not paying enough. But then when I checked around the country to see what other companies do, we do really perfectly fine. In fact, a number of our resident artists, the Sox artists, have gone on to Santa Fe. Now, Santa Fe is a $38 million summer festival producing opera. That company hires about 20 apprentices, 20 young artists, when they do their season, and they all make $750 a week. Did I say a month that we paid them $300 and some a month?
You did say a
Yeah,
week.
we-
Okay,
yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
a week. So they pay seven something a
Plus
week.
a gym pass.
Yeah, plus a gym pass and a nicer house than what I live in. So there you go.
That's nice.
Yeah.
But you're paying them with opportunity.
Yeah.
Yes,
That-
they
given-
also have an opportunity.
Yeah.
For instance, when I was a resident artist in Miami, we got $90 a week. So it's up a little bit.
Now,
And
are you also giving them a coaching opportunity? Or are you
Yes.
bringing that in, or
Absolutely.
is that
So
what you're
my
doing
wife
for
is
them?
a voice teacher and a former opera singer like myself, and so once a week they can coach with her and run through repertoire that they're working on, and she'll just be an ear to help them through that. And that, of course, is at no cost to them. Where if they were in New York, they'd be paying anywhere from $60 to $200 an hour for that,
Yeah.
depending on who they're working with. So,
And we also bring in some other voice coaches and
right.
and
We-
even people that are just currently opera performers that just have experience in the biz, so that these young artists have an opportunity to learn from them, ask them questions, get feedback on acting, on singing,
sure.
diction, all of it.
Yeah.
I'm interested in the age thing because you mentioned a little while ago about 20 to 30 is young for an opera singer.
Yeah.
Does it take a certain amount of years to get to the point where you can develop and do this?
It can, and yes, generally it does. And women, they mature vocally sooner than men, and so their careers oftentimes start sooner and end at an earlier age. Men start a little later with their voice maturing a little later and can sing usually later. In fact, we just had a man by the name of Greer Grimsley, who is probably the world's leading baritone as far as doing Wagnerian work. Now, most people that have seen Bugs Bunny in the horns and the spear,
Yeah.
that's usually a funny take on Wagner and the Ring Cycle, which is a 4 opera production. It takes 4 nights to do, and each opera is on average 4.5 to 5.5 hours long.
Wow.
And this guy that came to Shreveport just happens to be my buddy from back in the 80s, but he has become one of the world-renowned Wagnerian bass baritones.
Wow.
And
Nice.
he came to Shreveport, and they come usually every year to do master classes with our singers, but he came and sang a concert with us in September to celebrate the 75th. We then saw him in New York in December when we were there doing auditions, and you open up the program at the Met, and the second line said that he had just sung in Shreveport, Louisiana for our Diamond Jubilee concert. And I was like,
Nice.
yes!
Yeah. Great PR.
Yeah.
The 75 years you're talking about. So what are we doing for the 75th? I say we.
We just
I
did
mean,
that
you're half
big.
a
We
week.
just did this big concert with the symphony where we celebrated 75 years. We did it at the Strand. It was a really incredible concert, bringing in some really spectacular singers.
It was great because we celebrated the symphony. They were on stage and not in the pit.
Yeah.
We got
That's
to do
neat.
it at the Strand, and everyone loves the Strand. It's
Yeah.
so beautiful.
Is that where you normally do your shows?
No.
No.
We,
Every so often.
Every so often we
But
go to
no.
the Strand. We go to Riverview because the city has been very, very
Very generous.
generous to the arts organizations that need to use the Strand, and so both the symphony and the opera have benefited from their generosity. So it makes it, again, from the business standpoint,
Yeah.
it's just a much better place for us to go.
I'm interested in, from just the singing standpoint, how hard is opera on the vocal cords?
Well, if you know how to sing, it's not so hard.
Okay.
But it's
Well, for instance,
Good
and
answer.
there's a reason I asked
Yeah.
this. I only have one functioning vocal cord. Could I be an opera singer? Yeah, I had a virus that destroyed the nerves that control one side.
you could probably not
Yeah,
be an opera
that's what I
singer.
figured.
Yeah. I'm actually interested in that. So only one side functions.
Yeah, it was weird. I was back in, before I got into news, I was the sports guy, and
Yeah.
I woke up one day and I had to call 2 basketball games that day, and I got through them, but for the next week or so, I mean, I was trying to do the sports on the news, and it was terrible. And this voice coach called me and said, "Man, you sound awful. Come see me." I did. And she sent me to an ENT guy. He did the camera down the nose thing, and the first words out of his mouth were, "Does that TV station you work for have a good disability program?" And I'm like,
Wow.
What?" And
Wow.
Oh.
I was I was done. I couldn't I could barely talk like that. That was
Because
it.
your voice sounds great.
Yeah, it does now. Well, I went 2 years, I think, and did all kinds of therapy and stuff, and none of it worked. And I wound up
Wow.
having surgery up at the Mayo Clinic, and I woke up on the recovery table, and I could talk again. In fact, my voice was like a half an octave lower, I think.
Wow.
And so anytime somebody has vocal problems or they use their voice a lot, I'm interested in how
Yeah.
how it affects them. So,
Yeah,
so
I
I'm
mean,
interested in
It's a, people, we sometimes have to chat with our young artists because they feel tired after some rehearsals. And well, yeah, it's a workout. Like you talked about, going
Yeah.
to the gym. Well, these are muscles, and you have to get them to function so that you can sing a 3-hour opera. The average traditional opera is about 3 hours long with an intermission, and you have to know how to sing and pace yourself. When I was studying, my teacher would say, "Look, you've only got $1 to spend for the whole opera, and you just spent 90 cents on the one song you sing in this, but you've got 2 hours to go."
Yeah.
So you've
Yeah.
got to learn how to pace yourself, and that's another good thing that this program does. These kids going out every day to schools and performing a little 30-minute opera that we write in-house. And I have some composer friends that composes them, but they go out and, like this year, they're doing one about anti-bullying called Stop Bully. They are also doing one called Leo the Lion, about lying and cheating.
Nice.
And
Yeah.
so they go into the schools with these messages, and they sing for 30 minutes.
In English.
In English. And they may
Not Italian.
they may not ever even realize, our young artists may not realize how much they're actually learning until a few years down the road. When I mean, one of our singers has now been on America's Got Talent.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They had something where the singers would sing, but the judges' pictures were up on stage looking like they were actually singing.
Oh, okay.
And that was this gig, but one of them was our former resident artist, John Risen.
Nice.
And John called me after he'd been gone for about a year, and he just said, man, I didn't realize it. While I was doing all of that outreach into those schools, singing at 8 in the morning and 9 in the morning,
Yeah.
day in, day out, how much that taught me about being a performer. Like
Yeah.
I can sure perform
Yeah.
on the spot now.
At
fantastic.
7:30 a.m.
Yeah.
You know?
It just
You
doesn't.
Jennifer, talk us about the business side of this thing and what it takes to put on a show and how you attract the audience and how the shows are received.
Oh, good questions. As far as
He's a
attracting,
pro. He's not just a pretty voice.
yeah,
Half a voice, but yeah.
the marketing is always a challenge. So thank you for inviting us on a show like this. I always say that the people that are tapped into the arts community or in the schools, those folks do know about us, and we do have the attitude a little bit of if you're looking for something to do, you'll find the opera company eventually. So we do have to be kind of careful with our very limited marketing budget. In terms of we don't have the capability to blanket the town with billboards and newspaper ads and Facebook ads and things like that. But we try to target it as best we can to, let folks know. And really, I think the past few years we've been trying to invest in the audience that we do have a lot to, get them to come and bring friends and kind of do the word of mouth a little bit there to get even deeper relationships with the people we have. Everybody wants the young audience, millennials, and it's not that we don't want them. We absolutely do.
Yeah. Sure.
But admittedly,
It's
the
hard.
the marketing is a challenge. So, in an effort to do that, we've tried to do some shorter English-only operas that we do. We've been doing them at the Catholic Center lately. So we do it in a small venue. The whole run time is usually not longer than 90 minutes, so that it's kind of quick. It's just general admission ticket price, flat rate, $25 to $35, and they come in, they get exposed to opera. It's in English. It's it's kind of
That's important,
easy
right?
to understand.
Yeah.
English. The fact that we sing in a foreign language frightens folks for sure. The idea that opera is going to be long, that it's going to be boring, and it's none of those things. Honestly, opera is violent and
Oh man, the audience just shut up.
dramatic and
Yeah.
boring is anything but it's just so funny to me that people have this stereotype of opera being boring.
Yeah.
And we try really hard to introduce people in small ways to opera. And I think one of the ways that we've been doing it through the SOX program is starting with some of these
Yeah.
kids in school,
Sure. Yeah.
and then when they're 25 years old and they're looking for just something cool to do on a Friday night, date night or something, and we've
Right.
got a production coming up, they're kind of like, hey, I remember seeing them in school and that was kind of fun, let's go. And it's at a ticket
Good.
price they can afford. And so hopefully we're kind of doing something opera for all ages and,
Yeah.
bringing them along with us.
You're fighting the perception that it's kind of highbrow.
Oh, yeah.
That's always been there.
Yeah.
It's always been there. I always talk to folks when I'm doing an outreach talk to adults and kids.
Yeah.
I grew up in Anchorage, Alaska. Again, not the mecca of opera in the world.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so. no.
And we didn't grow up with opera. We didn't grow up with we had music, but we didn't grow up with. I didn't take a voice lesson until I was in college. I didn't know about opera until I was in one. I'd never been to one until I was actually in one. So I think for me, getting people in the door is the most important part of it. And not getting them in the door, if you are not in our database
Yeah.
and you want to attend the opera and give us a call, we'll give you your first 2 tickets. Because we want you to come in.
Sure.
And we're not going to put you in the last row at the top of the balcony.
Yeah.
We're going to give you decent seats
Yep.
so that you have a really good
Experience.
A good experience, yeah.
Yes.
First
yeah.
one's free, Jeff. I've
Yeah.
seen
Yeah,
your
that's
business
right.
model
Yeah.
before.
That's right. And
Yes,
I'll be there.
the other thing is, it's just like a movie. Every one of us have gone to movies that we hated, but it didn't keep us from going back to the
to another
movie.
one.
True. Yeah.
But people will go to the opera and say, "Oh, I hated it. It was awful." But maybe they went to a really horrible opera.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got operas that I hate. I was in operas that I hate. You know, and so.
Name one that you hate. Come on.
All right, I did a world premiere piece about Patty Hearst called Tanya,
Oh my.
and it was horrible. It was just
And
horrible.
it's going back a ways
yeah,
too.
yeah, it was horrible. I did it
You've
in
never
the 90s.
heard of it for a reason.
Yeah.
so.
It was awful.
So Steve, I went to your LinkedIn page.
Yes.
And your About Me section said that you are, you really want to make people understand that opera is not really what they think it's about,
Yes.
and you're really excited about educating kids about the importance of
Yeah.
arts.
Yes.
So talk a little bit about that.
Well, you know, I think that in the U.S., we are not brought up understanding classical music at all. We're not brought up to understand
Yeah.
opera. We're not brought up to understand the symphony, and the symphony innately is always going to be easier to understand because you go in, you listen to beautiful music, and you don't have to know the history or anything else, and you could just sit and enjoy.
Yeah. There's less of an expectation or on the audience member.
Right. And in the opera, as I've learned, because again, when I got into this, I knew nothing about it. Nothing. And I felt like,
Where did you get into it at?
so I was a college student in Anchorage.
Okay.
They were doing a little opera in English called Amal and the Night Visitors. It's a Christmas opera. And I was in the chorus, and the baritone lead in that got sick, and my professor was running the opera company that ran the music department, and she called me up, and we were 2 weeks before this show was going to open, and said, "I think you can learn this." I was 18 years old. Said, "I think you can learn this and do it." And I thought, man, I'm singing with the big boys of Anchorage. And I did it, and I didn't even realize it was an opera. I thought it was musical theater.
Yeah.
And she said,
Kind of
"No."
is, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it was English,
Yeah.
it was music,
Yeah.
and that's where it kind of clicked for me.
Yeah.
I thought, wow, this is really no different than any other musical theater piece.
Hey, we're down to our final 90 seconds for both of you. What final message would you like to leave to folks?
I think, call us up and don't be
Yeah.
afraid of the opera.
Yeah.
That's really my
Opera's
message.
it's for everybody.
It is. It's for everybody, and we're a lot of fun.
Yeah.
We're not.
And if a person wants to try an opera, try it out. Where do we start going to opera?
ShreveportOpera.org or call us 227-9503.
Yeah.
We'll take care of you.
Call
Say-
ahead,
say
you'll
the-
give a tour.
Say the number again.
227-9503.
All right, and ask your question again.
Yeah, call ahead. I think I saw somewhere where you said, call ahead, we'll give you a tour anytime. You have a small crew, but if we'll make a schedule
After
an
a show,
appointment.
after
Yeah.
a show, we can bring you backstage and you can meet.
Oh, okay.
And we'll,
That's nice.
Absolutely.
We'll tour that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are all the singers normally pretty happy to talk to the audience?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's a nice group. It's a really nice and approachable group of folks.
They're nice. Even the ones we bring in from out of
Yeah.
town just for a big opera, they're always nice.
I mean, they're regular
I
people
don't want to
too.
bring in.
Yeah.
I don't want to bring in a bunch of people we don't
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
No brown M&Ms in
That's
the dress.
right. That's right. Yeah.
What?
Green.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that went
Is
over
it
my
green?
head.
Yeah, there's definitely a color people don't eat.
Yeah. I thought it was green.
Okay, I ate them all. So
We learned a lot though, didn't we, Jeff?
yeah, okay.
Thank you, guys.
All right, listen, thank you guys. We really
Our
appreciate you
pleasure.
being with us.
Thank you.
And first 2 tickets are free, right?
Absolutely.
First 2 tickets
We'll
are
get you
free.
hooked.
All right, the Shreveport Opera House. I think we've all learned a lot today, haven't you?
I have.
All right, well, I know I have because I knew nothing to begin with, so I couldn't fail to learn something. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of Shreveport Bossier, or Good to Know Shreveport Bossier. Appreciate you being with us. You can find this podcast wherever you listen to your podcast. Have a good one, everybody.